Hey guys, welcome back. If you just saw the video above my head up here, you saw all about the different note lengths and note durations and things like that. I'm going to do a video where we talk a little bit slower than the other one, and hopefully this will help you understand a little better. Now, I will warn, what's complicated about this video is I'm using musictheory.net, and there's a bunch of terms in here that most musicians aren't going to be using when they discuss note length. So any of the words in bold down there, I'll trade them out for words that we would typically use in class. That way you can get an understanding of what we're talking about here. So without further ado, I'm going to start narrating, and we'll click through the slides on here to figure out what these note lengths are. So the length of time that a note is played is called the note duration, which is determined by the type of note. And you can see they drew a few different types of notes. Let's see, right next to me here. Let's go on to the next point. The semibrev has the longest note duration of modern music. Okay, they called it a semibrev. We call that a whole note, just like the other video did, all right? Call it a whole note. You can tell that it's a whole note because it's a circle and it's like a whole piece of pie, all right? So that one gets 4 beats. And let's go on down to the next one here. Again, it's calling it words that we don't typically use. The minim has half the duration of the semibrev. So what that says in the terms that we use is the half note has half the duration of the whole note. Makes sense. That's why it's called a half note. All right, let's go on. I'm just going to start using the terms that we speak in. 2 half notes equals the same amount of time as 1 whole note. So when you add those 2 together, it makes a whole note. Makes sense to me. So we said the whole note is worth 4 beats. So half of that would be 2 beats. And obviously 2 plus 2 equals 4. So there you go. All right, let's keep going. It's calling it a crochet. That is a quarter note, all right? A quarter note is a fourth of a semibrev, or a whole note. So a quarter note is worth a quarter of the length of the whole note. Makes sense. That's why it was given that name. 4 quarter notes equals the same amount of time as a whole note. 2 quarter notes equals the same amount of time as a half note. And you can see by the chart up there, if you watch my mouse, this length for the whole note is the same as the length of those 2 half notes. And these 2 half notes have the same length as 4 quarter notes, right? So if you figure out the value here, this very top one is worth 4 beats. This single half note right here is worth 2 beats. And this single quarter note way over here is worth 1 beat. When you add them all up, when you go across, it should always equal 4 if you're doing your math right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there we go. 2, 4, or at the very top, it equals 4. Hopefully that's making sense. Don't worry, we can unpack all this information in a Zoom meeting. Let's keep going. Notes smaller than the duration of a quarter note have a flag that halves the value of the note. All right, and the term, yeah, we do use the term flag quite a bit when we're talking about eighth notes and stuff like that. So the note they drew on this screen right there is called an eighth note. It is worth half the value of a quarter note. Makes sense. That's how we learn our fractions in math. So yeah, let's keep going. All right, the eighth note has 1 flag on it. So it is worth half the value of the quarter note. Therefore, 2 eighth notes in the same amount of space is equal to a quarter note. So when you put 2 eighth notes together, it equals a quarter. It's just like math, okay? Let's keep going. Now, when you put 2 flags on it, now it's worth half of an eighth note, which would be a 16th note. So you just keep dividing your fractions out to figure out what to call the note. So check my mouse out up here. This is a 16th note. Next to it is an eighth note. Next to that is a quarter note. Next to that is a half note. And all the way on the left is a whole note. Now let's talk about the beats that it's worth. So a whole note is equal to 4 beats. A half note, so half of 4 is going to be 2. A quarter note is going to be 1 beat. An eighth note is technically half of a beat. and a 16th note is like a quarter of one beat. So it would take a lot of 16th notes to add them back up and equal to a whole note. In fact, it would take 16 16th notes to make it whole, just like math. All right, let's keep going. 2 16th notes equal the duration of an 8th note, and it's highlighted in red over there. You can check that out. 4 16th notes equal the same duration as a quarter note. Although it is possible to have notes with 3 or even more than that flags, they are seldom used. All right, unless you're a percussionist. We do deal with 30-second notes quite a bit in percussion, but that's more for advanced stuff. All right, and finally, this chart displays the relationship of all 5 types of notes in this lesson. So let's watch the mouse here and let's go through it. We're going to start with the names of them, and then we'll talk about the durations of it. So at the very top of the chart, I hope you're writing this down. You should copy this chart down. At the top of your chart is a whole note. Under that is a half note. Underneath the half notes is a quarter note. Below the quarter notes, these are eighth notes. And below the eighth notes, these are 16th notes. All right, now let's talk about value. So let's go all the way back up to the top. Everything has to add up to 4, all right? So if you have to get your calculator out, you can do that. I got my phone right here to do some math to prove what we're saying is true. All right, so at the very top, the whole note, and go ahead and write this down too. If you need to pause and catch up, you can. The whole note is equal to 4 beats. All right, I'll say that one more time. The whole note is equal to 4 beats. Now, a half note, it's worth half of that. So a half note is equal to 2 beats. Now we have to check our math to see how many half notes it takes to equal whole. So check this out. A half note's 2 beats. So 2, and we need 2 of them to make a whole note. So 2 times 2 equals 4. All right? Let's keep going. So down under that, now we're talking about quarter notes. A quarter note is worth 1 beat. All right? So 1. And then there's 4 of them on there. 1 times 4, and that brings you back up to 4, all right? So 4 quarter notes are equal to the same length as a whole note. All right, let's keep going. Eighth notes, down under that. An eighth note is equal to half of a beat. So you would put 0.5 for an eighth note, all right? So let's do it on the calculator here. 0.5, and let's see how many there are on the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you're going to do 0.5 times 8. And guess what? It equals 4. 0.5 times 8 equals 4. All right? Here we go. Last one. At the very bottom here, the 16th notes are worth a quarter of a beat. If you do a fraction to decimal conversion, that's equal to 0.25 is what a quarter of a beat is, all right? So 0.25, let's see how many we have to multiply it by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 0.25 times 16, and guess what it equals? It brings you back to 4, all right? All of these need to add up to 4 to make sure that your math is right. Now, we have spoken about the names of what each of these notes are called, you know, whole note, whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, 16th note. We talked about the note duration of them, 4 beats, 2 beats, 1 beat, half a beat, quarter beat, all right? Now we need to actually start looking at the performance of these. So that's going to be in the next video. I hope this clarified a little bit. If you're still confused, we can talk about it at the next Zoom meeting. Here we go. Have a good day, y'all.